Hello, it is Throwback, Thursday, November 1st, 2018. Steve Sipress here as the sun sets behind me over the mountains in the west, and I am wearing the uniform that I wore when I worked in Madison Square Garden back in high school as a vendor walking around the seats selling beer and popcorn and ice cream and cotton candy and all that kind of stuff. Now, I'm wearing the Mets hat because I cannot find my Harry M. Stevens hat that goes along with the Harry M. Stevens uniform that I have somewhere in storage, so I just wore any old sports hat that I had around. Of course, my beloved but pitifully miserable New York Mets, I have this hat around, but that's not the authentic part of the uniform. And I wore this uniform on Halloween. Last night we had no kids coming around until it got dark. And the neighbors had said no kids will come around, and we had our big Costco-size bag of candy and our jack-o'-lanterns out front, and I was all ready and thoroughly disappointed when it got dark. And I said to my beautiful wife, Michelle, it looks like no kids are coming. And then suddenly the doorbell started ringing, and there was a group of 3 kids, and another one 3 or 4, and another one at 9, and like 20-something kids came by, and we got rid of all the candy. I mean, I was giving those kids so much candy, they probably, OD'd and went to the dentist and whatever, like within an hour. But we got rid of the entire Costco-sized bag of candy. We had a ton of fun, and I also wore this uniform, which doubles as a Halloween costume nowadays, of course, to a local Halloween party with some of our neighbors last Friday night. There was about 50 of us there, and they had a contest for best his and hers costume and best this and best that, and I won for the best male costume. Who knew? And not even technically a costume, although they were asking me, where's your thing of beer, or your whatever I don't even, trays. I even forgot. We used to walk around with the trays. Where's your tray of beer and trays of popcorn? And I just kept saying I'm all sold out. But it's the authentic apron that I wore, including right down to the authentic pockets full of change. Because with these outrageously ridiculous old prices, look how much change they made us give out. Well, it's backwards, but you see here, the Madison Square Garden price for a beer, $2.10. Are you kidding me? What is it today? $10? $2.10. Thanks a lot. So you think people are going to say keep the 90 cents change? Like, we had to give all kinds of tons of change. In fact, this was after years. I did it for about 3.5 years. And then after college and after law school even, which is probably when this is from, which makes it less than 40 years old, maybe 35, I went back to Madison Square Garden, my high school job, and I walked around as a vendor, walked around the seats selling beer and popcorn and whatever to make money, enough money to start a business. And I started my fantasy sports game business with that. I got enough money to put down money on a computer, a Tandy 1000 computer back then with a 10 meg hard drive. Ran my entire multi-million-dollar business off that, and printed up some brochures and envelopes and some postage and put in a phone line and placed some ads. That was the most important thing, the marketing. I placed the ad in the obscure classified section of the obscure sports publication and got the thing off the ground. So I was there and started in 1977. First event I worked was Harlem Globetrotters in February 1977. And the beer back then was 90 cents when I was first selling it, and we loved it. We were on pure commission. So some kids would go in, and this is where I learned a lot of lessons that have carried me through to this day and helped my clients. As we all know, business owners, a lot of hard work and perseverance and great work habits, and we certainly learned that because it was a pure commission job. We made 14.25% commission, about a penny for every 7 cents of stuff we sold. And so when beer was 90 cents, we were making like 13 cents commission, but what do you think? It was beer, 90 cents, and everyone said keep the change when they handed you $1. 5 beers, $4.50, keep the change, boom. So we were actually making the 13 cents commission and the 10-cent tip. We were making 23 cents a beer. It was by far the most money you could make selling anything back then, 23 cents a beer. And then guess what they did? In their complete brilliant wisdom, they raised the price to $1. And we all went crazy and complained and said, are you out of your mind? And in their case, they were like, oh, you're making an extra penny You should be happy. And we were like, dude, you just cost us 9 cents a beer. And so cut our income almost in half on the beer. Thanks a lot. And then the price just kept going up, as everything does, to where it got to $2.10. What a ridiculous price for us to have to walk around and hand out that much change. And the ice cream, now that's more like it. 95 cents for the ice cream. So we made the about 14 cents commission plus the 5-cent tip. There you go. We made 19 cents on an ice cream. Pretty much everybody would say keep the change. And now this button over here, these I paid, I don't know, about 50 cents for. The apron paid about $5 or $10 for. Yeah, everything was pure commission, and we had to pay for all our own everything. But this one I paid like 20 or 30 bucks for. This was our official. I was a member of the New York Bar and Restaurant, or Restaurant and Bar Workers Union, whatever it was called, which of course the union never did any good for any of us, but we had to get the money taken out of our paycheck, and we had to join the union, and that was the official badge that I had joined the union. And amazingly, yeah, this has to be when I went back to the Garden after graduating law school, number 109, because I was certainly not that high a number back in the day. There was a time where I was, in terms of the money being made and the money being brought in, I was the number one vendor for a little while there. And but there were some go-getters there. I met all kinds of great kids. This was a great job for a high school kid, by the way. Pure commission. You can work when you want. There was no set hours, no set days. So some kids came in once a week, and some kids went into every event. And some kids, when they went to events like the concert, would just sit there and watch. I mean, we were backstage. Our dressing room was right next to the dressing room of the teams and the superstar, rock bands that would come in, Pink Floyd and Yes and Paul McCartney and Billy Joel, Bruce Springsteen, all of them, and so we were getting dressed right there. We'd play soccer with Rod Stewart and his people. He'd set up the hockey nets, and Rod Stewart loves soccer. I think he owns a professional soccer team, and we did all that stuff. So you could, and a lot of kids did, when it came to the concerts, they just went right to the front row, went backstage, hung out, drank some beers, and smoked some funny stuff, and made no money, but they watched the concert. It was pretty hard to work the concert anyway. It was pitch black, a lot of smoke in the air, stinking up the place, so you couldn't even breathe. You couldn't hear anything because it's so loud. And so how are you going to go walk around and sell? And plus, there's people sitting all up and down the aisles. Anytime you get anywhere close to the stage, people are not, they come down from the upper deck, they're sitting all over. So almost impossible to work, and yet that's what I did. So I always worked. So that's one lesson I learned. Another thing I learned all about sales, of course. That's what I was doing, was selling. And I learned marketing, merchandising. This was a form of selling and marketing known as merchandising, where we're going around and pretty much just showing whatever we have with a smile and hardworking to everyone there was. Now, one of the secrets there, and you'll see it if you go to ball games, especially if you go to any games with me, because, of course, I'm watching the game, but I'm always paying attention to the vendors and pointing out to my beautiful wife, Michelle, or clients, or whoever at the game, like, look at that guy, or this guy's fantastic. It's the guy that goes all the way to the top of the row or all the way to the bottom of the row if it goes down, and works that crowd, works the territory completely, is the one that makes the money. And that's a work habit that I developed later on. It served me really well in my 9 years of door-to-door sales. Working that territory correctly was one of the steps we had in the system. Those that were lazy and just walked around and yelled and said, nobody's ever waving to me, so I'm not walking up, they didn't make the sales. You don't understand, when people are 10 rows up even, they don't see. They're not looking at you. They're looking at the field or the court or the ice. They're looking past you. You got to walk up, and you got to look people in the eye. And pretty much, even though you're just saying popcorn, you look them in the eye and you go, popcorn? Fresh hot popcorn? All right, give me 4 of them. We were doing our selling thing. And so I learned a lot of lessons, mostly by watching the top guys when I came in. I wonder why I was making no money. And I was just lifting the stuff up and down and walking up the stairs and yelling at the top of my lungs. Man, it was an exhausting job. Good thing I was a high school kid. But I was wondering why these guys are making twice as much money. So I paid attention. I modeled success. And I became someone that people modeled. Pretty much the same thing I do now in my career. So there's another lesson there. So there's all kinds of great lessons. Hit me up sometime with a private message or steve@stevecypress.com, or send me a tweet or whatever, and we can talk about it all day. Anyone else here that was ever a vendor? Phil Breakfield's here. Oh, a lot of people. Holy moly. Bobby is here. Tovy's here. My beautiful wife Michelle is here. Phil's here. A whole bunch of people. And Phil says, now Phil, talking about concerts, Phil was not a lowly vendor in the crowd trying to walk over people that didn't even know what day it was. You know, we were like ice cream. They're like, huh, what? 95 cents, huh, what? They'd hand you like 16 cents, 42 cents. They didn't know what's going on. Trying to get the money, trying to get the money passed down the road at a concert. Oh my goodness, standing there for 10 minutes. They're like, hey, pass, what? Huh? Yeah, huh? What? They're putting it in their pocket? No, give it to the guy. Give it, oh. Anyway, so, but Phil, talk about concerts, took it about 17 bazillion% steps further. He was a manager of some of the most famous musical acts of all time. Elvis Presley, I think. Jimi Hendrix, pretty sure. I don't know. Three Dog Night. Am I on track with some of these? Am I off? And I know I'm leaving a lot off. But Phil asks, I wonder if I was ever working a concert while you were working the crowd. Only in the Garden. If you were in Madison Square Garden in New York City from 1977 to 79, and then again for a very brief time in 1985, December of 1985, after I took the bar exam, and then I started that business in January 86. I'd been doing it as a hobby for a little over a year before that, but then I placed that ad. Had to have the money up front by the end of January to place that ad to come out in March of 86, when I first professionally charged money and ran my fantasy sports game business. And Jim is here, good seeing you. So you would have had to be in the Garden at one of those times. So, and I don't know if you were with any of those groups. I do remember the summer of 77, I think it might have been, the Macho Man, the Village People. The Village People came in. Give me a break. That was the summer of 77 or 78. How ridiculous was that? What a ridiculous show. I think they were even there for 2 nights. It was fairly not safe to be a guy walking around anyway. Not that there's anything wrong with that. There were some events, concerts, which was all women. I'm forgetting the names now. Oh, Peter Frampton was one. There was a couple that were pretty much all girls at. So guys were loving working those. There was ones where they were almost all guys, like Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd, July 1, 2, 3, 4, 1977. You can imagine Pink Floyd with quadraphonic sound. They took out seats in 3 of the areas around the Garden and set up 4 sets of speakers. And they blasted, I think that was the Animals tour, and they just blasted this incredibly dark, Pink Floyd music to all guys 1, 2, 3, 4 days before July 4th, which meant fireworks and firecrackers all over the place. It was a crazy time. Oh, Led Zeppelin, 6 nights that year in 77. That was June 77. Any of these ringing a bell, Phil? I don't think so. But Zeppelin, 6 nights. Now, that was a fun one. See, you ever go to these concerts, you like to buy the official concert T-shirt. They sell them outside, knockoffs. But inside, nowadays, I don't know, you probably got to pay $40, right, for a T-shirt, or $50 for a sweatshirt, or whatever it is. Back then, I know I'm dating myself here, it was $3 for a T-shirt, $6 for the long sleeve shirt. $3 for the T-shirt. And what happened? No, sorry, it was 6 and 12. It was 3 for us because we got the shirts on the last night of whatever concert. We got to buy the leftover. There was nothing else you can do with them. The leftover official Madison Square Garden concert shirts or whatever act it was for half price. So what I would do is I would take orders in school. Another lesson here in entrepreneurialism. I'd take orders in school, let them know I'm going, and I'm getting the shirts, and I'd sell it to them at regular price. So $6 for a shirt, but I'd buy 10 or 20 of them on the last day of the show, come in the next day and collect and double my money. Well, and then everyone would wear around the shirt in school, in high school, badge of honor, wearing around that billboard the night after a concert, showing off what a big shot. You went to the concert, right? So there I was, and not everyone knew that I had the greatest job in the world for a kid working in Madison Square Garden. I saw every Nick game, Ranger game, concert, boxing match, World Cup soccer of '78 on the closed circuit on the screens. So a lot of beer there, that's for sure. But got to see anything and rock stars and whatever. It was a blast. But I do remember Led Zeppelin especially being in there after it was over. And I'm wearing the shirt and we're in the lunchroom and somebody sees the shirt and goes like, "Oh, Led Zeppelin. Oh, what night did you go?" And I always gave my stock response when there were multiple shows. So I was like, "What night did you go?" And someone was like, "Oh, I went the first night." And I'm like, "So did I." And somebody else said, "I went the third night." And I was like, "So did I." Somebody else, "I went the fourth." You can see where this is going. Everyone was like, "I went this night, that night." I was like, "Yeah, went to all of them." And they were like, "What?" We had to pay, that was probably only $20 a ticket back then, but 77, $20 is whatever it is today, 60 or 100 to go to a show. And they were like, "We paid money and we sat wherever up in the nosebleeds and you got paid money." We're hanging out backstage with them before and after the show. I mean, they whisked them into a limo almost all the time right after the show, but we'd watch them go by. They'd sweat on us or throw us a pick or something. And by throw a pick, I don't mean the basketball players, because if they threw a pick on us, holy cremoli, that would slam us into the wall. Those guys are humonganoid. I'd be shaking their hands sometimes. Willis Reed, I mean, the biggest hands on earth. And even, guards. They were like 6'3". He's short for the NBA. I mean, obviously they're big guys. Spencer Haywood, great. I mean, these great guys. But anyway, it was always fun to be lording it over everybody. That yes, I went to every concert and sat at the end once we were done selling. Went right up to the front. Went backstage. Never as cool as Phil Brakefield, though. And Phil says Elvis, Three Dog Night, Led Zeppelin, Rod Stewart, John Denver, Sinatra, Moody Blues, Elton John, and then I love how he puts in etc. In other words, everybody. Oh, and you were retired from concert. I think we talked about that once. Yeah, you were no longer managing any of these acts by '77 when I started. Bummer, because Led Zeppelin, Rod Stewart in '77, it was Do You Think I'm Sexy tour for Rod Stewart was there for 3 nights, I think. Led Zeppelin, those 6 nights. Elton John, I don't think I ever worked when he was there. And certainly not Elvis. He had left the building, as they say. Anyway, that'll do it for Throwback Thursday, folks. Chris Canzano is here. Kiss, yeah. They weren't big enough at that point. They barely just getting started. And so they hadn't played the Garden at the time I was there. At least not the 70s. By the 80s, they were big. I remember in high school, Another One Bites the Dust. Another One Rides the Bus, as Weird Al would say. That was a hit. Oh, and I do remember the New York Rangers used to come out to Back in the New York Groove. And Peter Criss, or I don't remember which one of the Kiss members, when they did those 4 solo albums, one of those was Back in the New York Groove. And that's the Rangers always came out to that song, especially in the playoffs. They blasted that Back in the New York Groove. Anyway, Ace Frehley. So, thank you, Chris. Must be a Kiss fan. Must be wanting to rock and roll. What party? What I want to rock and roll all night and party every day. Almost got those backwards. Or did I get them backwards? I want to rock and roll all night and party every day. Yeah, I think that's it. And Phil says Elton John was a really good tennis player. Go figure. Who knew? All right, I'll buy that. World Team Tennis was there when I was there in the 70s. Tom Ocker was on the New York Sets, I think was the name of the team. They had the New York Nets basketball, the New York Mets baseball, the New York Jets football, and I think it was the New York Sets of tennis. And Tom Ocker was the star of that team. Now, that was very cool. If you ever saw tennis players, I mean the top players in the world, warm up before a tournament, just unbelievable. We'd watch them practice before the crowd even came in or anything. And Tom Ocker used to routinely practice against 2 women on the other side. So it'd be 2 of the top women players in the world and Tom Ocker, and they'd be seriously playing. Unbelievable. So he'd be going they'd keep him from sideline to sideline, and they'd lob it and make him run back and forth, and it didn't matter. It was a fair match. Tom Ocker against 2 top women in the world. Now, I know that's politically incorrect. You want to hear today, ooh, women are equal to men and all that. Yeah, look, they're equal in a lot of ways, but there's a lot of ways that men and women are different, and that was certainly one of them. I can tell you this, as good as Billie Jean was, because she also played, she never played against two of the top men on the other side of the court. And if she did, I mean, she did once famously, when was it, 1980? Around 1980 in Houston when she beat, what's his name? Bobby Riggs in the Battle of the Sexes. Yeah, she beat one 50-year-old guy or something across the net. But anyway, I digress. Kevin is here. Good morning. Caught you late today. Yeah, it must be almost noon for you. It is getting dark here, and that ought to really do it. So for those that came on late or just want to see it again, there it is, the official. Now with a Rhino of the Day underneath. I just wore picked out a red t-shirt, happens to have a rhino on it. So we have the Rhino of the Day underneath. There he is. There's the horns of the rhino. But this actual apron is the actual uniform from Harry and Stevens. And I know this was actually, now that I remember, this was when I went back to work in 1985 in the Garden, because in 77 the apron was not red and white, it was brown with orange pockets, and we had an orange undershirt and white cotton pants. I did for a while. Those cotton pants are very cool to wear around the summer. I don't have any of the pants anymore, probably wouldn't fit in them. Don't think I have any of those orange button-down orange shirts underneath, but I kept this apron as a memento and as a Halloween costume, so I can take it out once a year. My Rhino costume that I usually wear is in storage somewhere, and so I said, let's wear this to Halloween party last Friday night, and I won the prize for the best costume, even though it's not a costume. This is official vintage stuff from the Garden. So many stories to tell, so many adventures from back in that day. But I will leave it there as the sun is pretty much setting behind me on a gorgeous evening here in beautiful Arizona. Hope it's great where you are too. Thanks Phil, Chris, Kevin, everyone else for the input, for the likes, for the shares, just for being here. And that'll do it for Throwback Thursday. We'll throw it back to the future, and I'll be back tomorrow on, it used to be Foundation Friday. And I think I'll still do it. I'll call it Foundation Friday. I'm changing up the days of the week. Yesterday was World Wide Web Wednesday for the first time. And Saturday is going to be Social Media Saturday for the first time. But tomorrow I think we'll stick with Foundation Friday. I got a foundational tip to help you build your business that I'll be sharing tomorrow. Hope you'll be with me then. Thanks everyone being here today. Over and out. Bye-bye.